Hello, my name is Miss Kathy, and I love to read. Today I'd like to share a story with you that I wrote, You Lucky Frog, written by Kathy A. Morrow, formerly Kathy Hanisch, original music by David Morrow, lyrics by Kathy Morrow, and illustrations by Mary Khalil. It's about a small boy who enjoys swimming so much he thinks that being a frog is better than being a boy. I hope you enjoy my story.
You Lucky Frog, written by Kathy A. Hanisch, illustrated by Mary Khalil. Music by David L. Morrow. Stephen was an active young boy who loved to run and jump, but more than anything else, he loved to swim. He could spend hour after hour swimming. It didn't matter to him whether he was in a swimming pool or a lake or a dirty old pond. Sometimes he would go to his favorite pond, which was surrounded by rolling hills, great trees for climbing, soft, thick green grass, and lots of lively frogs. After swimming in the pond, he would climb out, just sit quietly at the water's edge, and watch as all the frogs who lived by the pond swam about in the water. As Stephen watched them gracefully glide in and out of the water, their large green bodies glistening in the sun, he would often think to himself, "Wow, frogs are lucky. They never have to go to school or clean their rooms. They can just swim all the time. I wish I could be a frog."
It's just not fair. There ought to be a way for me to be a frog for just a day, 'cause it's such fun croaking in the sun, catching flies and swimming, playing games and hopping. I guarantee a happy life for me if I'm lucky enough to be a baby to stay forever, happily, joyfully, always and ever to be a frog.
One day in late summer, just after the start of the new school year, Stephen felt unusually tired after a long, vigorous day of swimming, so he lay down under a tree next to the pond and fell fast asleep almost instantly. When he awoke, it was already dark outside, but the moon shone so brightly on the water that he thought he would take one more quick swim before heading back home for supper. When he started to get up, he noticed that the grass was much taller than it was when he went to sleep. As a matter of fact, the trees and rocks and pond were bigger too. Suddenly, he realized it wasn't the things around him that were larger. He was smaller, much smaller. As he moved toward the pond, he was aware that he wasn't walking, but hopping. Could it be true, he thought? At last, at the edge of the water, he looked into the water. He could hardly believe his eyes, his great, big, bulging frog eyes. That's right. Somehow, while he was asleep, he had turned into a frog. "Wow!" he thought. "This is great!" He jumped into the water and swam all around. He swam better and longer than he ever had before. Finally, he decided to jump out of the water and rest in the grass. Still staring in amazement at his new appearance, he heard a voice say, "Hey, what you looking at in the water?" As he turned, he saw another frog. Then the frog said, "Hi, my name is Lester. My friends call me Leapin' Lester, 'cause I can jump higher than any other frog around here. You must be new here. What's your name?" Though he was still somewhat in a state of shock, Stephen answered politely, "Hi, my name is Stephen. Nice to meet you, Lester. Yes, I am new here. You wouldn't believe just how new." "Say, I'm hungry," said Leapin' Lester. "Wanna go catch some flies?" Before he knew what he was saying, Stephen answered, "Yeah, let's go. I haven't eaten since lunchtime." Stephen and Leapin' Lester joined some of the other frogs who were skillfully catching their food. Now, since Stephen hadn't been a frog for very long, he didn't have any experience catching flies. At first, Stephen just watched the others. Then he bravely stuck out his tongue and zap! He caught a fly his first try. The trouble was, he couldn't quite figure out how to get his tongue and the fly into his mouth. His tongue landed on his head, then his side, then on Lester's head. Of course, all the other frogs thought he was just trying to be funny, and they laughed so hard they fell right off their lily pads. Eventually, he was able to get all the flies he wanted and move his tongue exactly where he wanted it to be. Stephen and Leapin' Lester were together all the time, playing in the grass, sleeping on lily pads, and catching flies and other delicious bugs. Everything seemed perfect to Stephen. As he and Lester were playing in the grass, Lester shouted, "Watch out! Jump into the pond, quick!" After they were safely in the water, Stephen asked, "What happened? Why were you afraid?" Lester explained that there was a heron closing in on them fast. You see, many water birds, but especially herons, love frogs for dinner. Stephen shivered. He never thought about something like that happening. After that, Stephen tried to be aware of what was flying overhead, which was exactly what he was doing when once again Lester yelled, "Hurry! There's a big dog coming toward the pond." Stephen looked and said, "Oh, he's okay. That's my dog, Rooster. He won't hurt us." "What are you talking about?" said Lester, as he raced toward the safety of his nest. "Frogs don't have dogs for pets. Dogs are another enemy of frogs. Not because they eat them, but because they play too rough, and frogs get badly hurt." "But I told you this dog is okay," said Stephen. "Watch, I'll show you. Hey, Rooster, it's me, Stephen. How you doing, boy?" Fortunately for Stephen, he realized just in time that even though he knew who Rooster was, to Rooster, he was just another frog to play with. Stephen went screaming after Lester. "Wait for me! I guess Rooster doesn't know who I am anymore." Safe and sound within the nest, Leapin' Lester looked at Stephen very strangely. "Okay, explain something to me. How does a frog get a dog for a pet? And what do you mean he doesn't know you anymore?" As Lester listened in astonishment, Stephen told him who he really was, or who he used to be before he was changed into a frog. He told Lester that he loved to swim and spent many hours at the pond, watching all the frogs, thinking how lucky frogs were, and wishing he could be one. Lester said that he remembered a young boy who came to the pond very often, and that the boy was always very gentle with the frogs, unlike some children who treated them like toys that were meant to be tossed about because it gave the children pleasure. Stephen only touched the frogs once in a while, and always carefully because, after all, they were living creatures. Gradually, Stephen realized that he didn't feel as happy as he did when he first turned into a frog. He also noticed that he was a little sad. You see, he was starting to miss